Hello, group mates. So we had to read the Prelude and the Postlude, and it's basically what is the meaning of music. And Smalls kind of says that it's an abstraction, and to quote, it says music is not a thing but an activity. And that makes a lot of sense because, like, you do music, you don't, you can't touch it except for your instrument. So I think it's like by association, music is a thing, but musicking is what it should probably be called. Yeah, and then when you mainly think of like a work of music, and that is the thing, and we kind of get focused on the specific work as opposed to the process as a whole, which I think is what he finds to be more important. Like, I was just thinking about it in like my global class, and some cultures, they don't even have a word for specifically just music as a flat out word. Like, it's combined with other things, so like to give it more meaning. So just the one word music might not like mean everything that we put into it. Then the main aspect of musicking we like to think of is performance, because we all do it. And he says that it could be classified as only an imperfect approximate representation of the work. Because how are we supposed to know what Handel wanted you to sing like? And you do your best to like do the composer justice, but it's still your work, and you can either make a good piece great or make a bad piece great, or vice versa. Good piece is bad. It is also interesting because when you perform, it should be transparent. Like, you shouldn't be you performing the piece. It should be, this piece is being performed. The performance itself is transparent. It's the work, just through the medium of performance, through the medium of me, if I'm singing. It also says performance does not exist to present musical works, but musical works exist to give performers something to perform. And I'm not sure, I think it depends on who's reading this, because I could say that and be like, yes, this piece was written for me, if it's something that I really resonate with. But the composer wasn't thinking of me when he wrote it, so I think it's kind of a selfish line, but I agree with it. To music is to take part, to perform, to listen. It's you could dance, you could compose. There's so many parts of it that it can't just be dumbed down to one word of music that is a thing. At least an action has so much, such a stronger way of participating and a group effort kind of a thing. It's really interesting because it's a very one-dimensional, straightforward kind of a process, because it goes from the composer to the performer to the audience. And, the audience gives minimal feedback to the performer, let alone the composer, especially since a lot of the good composers died. So, yeah, what else did I write? I disagreed with something I said already. Performance, the part about it being a transparent, imperfect, approximate representation, I disagree with that, because the performance is, I think, a part of it. It's not the only thing about it, but it is an addition. So that's why every person that performs something is doing the piece differently, because they're adding something new to the piece that maybe the previous or next performer never thought of. And I think that's a great thing about performance, because you'll never see the same thing twice. It's interesting how we only study basically Western music here, and at TCNJ or in our country, basically. And that seems kind of narrow when there's so many other things that we could be focusing on, and there is all that other kind of music that we just never think about. I like how he decides that everyone can make music. Like, it could be good or it could be bad, but everyone has that innate ability to make music. Even, like, before you can talk, you can understand sounds. And I think that's the beginning of music, which I think is really cool. And, like, people who don't think they can sing or, like, can't match pitch or anything like that, it's kind of been trained out of them not to try. And, like, from my own experience, my dad can't match pitch. He just doesn't know how to hear it in his head. But, like, if he sings a song from 40 years ago that he liked as a kid, he is pitch for pitch accurate, which is really cool. Just being in band or choir, if you're not in that doesn't mean you're unmusical. That just means that you don't maybe identify with one of those instruments. Like the whole idea of a tech department for like music technology courses and things like that, they are also musical. They might even be more musical than we are. They just think of it differently. And we need to realize that they are musicking as well. And it also says, this is the postlude, I didn't exactly say when I switched, that it's, no matter what kind of musicking you're doing, it is serious. And, like, you're not just fiddling around, like, oh, I just fiddle on this. Like, no, this is music and you are making it. Be proud of that and, like, stand up for what you're doing. Don't just, like, blow it off and say, like, oh, it's not real. Because it is. If you're musicking, it's real. And I think that's really powerful. What else? Performers can/should make whatever changes they want to the music, and that sounds kind of wrong when you're thinking of it, because if I started changing the notes, I would probably get yelled at by my teacher. But then you think of, like, conductors and how they're interpreting the music in their own way, and, like, a lot of times dynamic markings might not be in there, and it could completely change the tone of a piece. Or vocally, you add ornaments, especially in, like, the Baroque music. None of it's written in, and they do the return of the A section, and in that time, it would be completely changed by the great singer of that day. And the composer expected it, and that was the known norm. So why now is it so different? Like, stick to your notes. That's just an interesting thing that came up. At the very end, it talks about how, like, beauty is all about perception and, like, what music you think is beautiful. And it's just kind of talking about, like, how everyone musics differently. And, like, Western music could be beautiful, but so could this other music that we've never even heard of. And it just doesn't resonate right in our ears, but that doesn't mean it's not beautiful. So that's all I have to say on that. Good night.